Hey everybody, welcome to the behind the scenes of the Queer in Alberta interview series. This is where the magic happens, which I instantly regretted as soon as that came out of my mouth. I wanted to pop in and say hi because this footage that you're gonna see, it's from the very first interview that I ever did. Without this interview and without this amazing person behind me here, without Michelle, we would not have the Queer in Alberta series as it is today and as it's going to continue to grow. So I'm really excited to share this with you. It's kind of fun to go back and watch because very clearly I'm very nervous and I'm not asking as many questions. It holds a really special place in my heart, and like I said, I can't thank Michelle enough. So without further ado, here is the very first Queer in Alberta interview that I ever did.
We're, baby gays if you want, old baby gays. I went to Twisted Element for the first time in my life, like a month ago.
Go you!
I'm like, ah!
What's your story? What's your sign? It's like we're twin flames in a different life.
My name is Michelle Christopherson. I thought I was straight my whole life. I came to some LGBTQIA2S plus terminology recently, and I identify as queer because it's complicated. I identify with aspects of being A-spec as well as a woman who loves women.
Do you feel that growing up in Alberta impacted you on your journey of embracing your queerness?
#compet, yes.
That's good. Sure.
Yeah, it was invisible. To put that in context, I graduated from high school in 1987. I didn't know anybody who was gay. Back then, the word gay was a slur. I mean, I suppose it still is, although that's changing. I ended up moving to Quebec in my 20s. Still didn't know anybody gay. Moved back home in mid-90s. And then by then, I attempted to try to date a woman. And all I could get my hands on was a university newspaper with the wanted ads in print in the back with phone numbers. It's really only been through my niece and nephew sharing their coming out stories on Facebook using vocabulary that was unfamiliar to me, that I went and looked up because I love language, as well as in combination with, I work for a school board and we have a SOGI team, so sexual orientation and gender identity team. And some of the materials that I became aware of that were being shared with students in our K-12 school board, I was like, well, check this out. I need to know this stuff. And then just went on this personal discovery journey. Whether I knew it my whole life that I was queer or just came to the realization now, I honestly couldn't tell you. I think there were signs along the way, which I, of course, repressed and dismissed and, it couldn't possibly be. It took a lot of deconstructing and unlearning and searching on my part. I mean, I really had to go hunting for this. I mean, Google search after Google search. Am I the only woman married to a man over 50 who realizes she's gay, and what do I do about it? And I just came up with these heart-wrenching, horrible, traumatized, religious trauma women. It didn't resonate with me at all. I came across a YouTuber, Emily's Late Life Lesbian Journey. And it was like discovering gold. She was just so open, and she was just talking and doing all these, YouTube videos one after the other. And she's similar in age, although, probably a decade younger than me, but old enough to have lived a little and been married to a man, and she has a child. And then, just watching that story evolve, I mean, I binge watched it. I didn't grow up, I haven't seen the L word, I haven't all of the culture that I don't have any of that. So I feel a little estranged from the queer community. But then I found a group on Facebook and queer TikTok, lesbian TikTok, which was amazing. And I joined this group and I've since become an admin. It's called Late Bloomer Lesbians. When I first became aware of it, it was 50 people. And then around 250, I joined because I thought, well, I don't want to be too visible with 50. And now we're over 5,000 of us.
Crazy.
I mean, that's amazing to me. Like, I am so not alone. It's really nice just sort of finding, taking up space, I guess, as we say, and just finding community.
Labels can be very much like a coming home moment, especially if you've struggled for a long time and you find something and you go, oh, this fits me. But sometimes they can almost be constraining. With my discipline, we really study gender and culture. We know that sexuality is very fluid. It's a spectrum and it can fluctuate and change throughout your life.
That's actually a controversial topic within our group, because I would say the average age of us are around 35. So I'm definitely one of the matriarchs, or the older, people. That being said, age doesn't really have anything to do with it. I believe that it's a privilege to be able to say, I reject labels.
Absolutely.
Because that indicates that you grew up and are familiar with them and feel like you belong in the world and you belong in community. For somebody that just felt weird or repressed or suppressed or isolated, those words have the power to connect us and to find others like us and reunite us with community.
I'm smiling hearing that you're finding people closer to home, because it's wonderful to have connection in general, but I think part of the video that connected us for this meeting was that feeling of, isolation in Alberta, right? So even just this conversation, it's nice to have.
I guess I would have to say some of the nicest things about being queer are self-acceptance. And like, for me, it's really personal because it's still pretty fresh. Like, that wound I've been really putting in work to do some healing after struggling with depression and anxiety. It was just really nice to come out on National Coming Out Day there, October 11th. I had been kind of cautious with what pages I liked and what groups I joined on Facebook because I didn't know who would see it. I just didn't want one person to tell my story. I went from a supportive group to my own page, to my own family, and here come my puppies. And so the support that I found from others like me who've been through similar experiences has been probably the best. I've really only experienced negativity. Again, this is still pretty fresh. I just come out publicly 2 weeks ago. I feel super about it, but it was really just in the last 2 years that I really started to think, well, what does that really mean to me? When I met my current husband back in 2003, I let him know that I had dated a woman before dating him. And when I told him way back in 2003, he was just like, okay, I get it, no problem. That was then, this is now. And we never really even talked about it again until this summer. And then I said, like, hey, I really want you to get this. And in my mind, based on 95% of other people's experiences, I expected he would say, well, that's it, we're over, get out. So the anxiety for telling him that this really matters to me, and it's a part of my identity that I no longer want to walk on eggshells around, or like, I also want to stop being so careful about what I say. If I am going to house sit for a friend who's going to visit her fiance, I want to be able to say, yeah, and her fiance, yeah, like, I don't want to have to watch and use these gender, them, and
just relatable.
For my mental health, it's been really good to do that, and it feels comfortable and cozy. And I'm really grateful that my handful of friends, like in-person friends that I told, were like, either great, we don't care, that changes nothing, but yay you, or frickin' A, this is amazing.
I didn't realize that it had only been 2 weeks since you officially came out. So just like immediately, I really want to respect that and honor that. Really, I'm struck with how brave you are, because it isn't an easy thing at any point to do, and to do it in the manner that you have, it's very inspiring to see. So thank you for being you and being visible.
The 2 weeks is the public part, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, for years below that was all of my internal thinking, I think, really, and second guessing myself. And so it was, 2 years ago, I found one TikToker, and then in April, so what's that, about 6 months ago, I joined a group full of community. And so I've just been like a sponge, just absorbing everyone's stories. And it's informed some of my decisions. Like the number one I think I knew was you can't tell a limited audience. Someone's going to let the cat out of the bag. Yeah. And I wanted to control that. I'm a Gen X. And so I'm learning more from millennials and people younger than them than baby boomers, and my parents are actually older than the baby boomer generation. I forget what that's called, like the originals or something.
The originals. Good. I like that.
Yeah, so for anybody that's, I won't even say struggling or grappling, how about exploring the possibility that everything they've known up until now either was they didn't know themselves or they've changed. It doesn't matter. But I would just want them to know that you're not alone. And I know it can feel like you're alone if even in a big city like Calgary, but it's 2021, almost 2022. And with the advent of, TikTok and groups on Facebook, and Zoom sessions, it's never been easier to connect in spite of lockdowns, in spite of the pandemic, and to just like have chats like this. Like I just feel like we're in the same room or just, having a conversation. And I guess the other part of that I would say to people is that there is no one right way to be. You are the expert on your life. You know yourself better than anyone else. If you've lived your life up until now trying to conform or fit in or behave or obey, and it just doesn't feel right anymore, then have a look at that, examine that. Why is that? Getting married young, being part of a religious community, church family, being in a small town, being isolated, and just, all of those things can contribute. It's okay to leave your partner, but it's also okay to not. I was pleasantly surprised in talking to my husband and coming out to him as queer, as a woman who loves women, also on the ACE spectrum, and having him say, okay, I get that. What does that mean for us? And not, kick me out of the house, because he gets that it's a part of me and things can change. And so couples can work together. You can love someone in multiple different ways. And so sometimes after a lifetime with someone, you love the person and you love the life you've built together. You should never have to feel like you're hiding who you really are, because it just it's so draining, and it contributes to depression and anxiety. And within the LGBTQIA2S++ community, suicide is much of a higher rate, along with depression and anxiety. So the more that you can do to do that personal introspection and growth and understanding, the better you know yourself, the easier your life will become. And if you don't know yourself well enough because you've been conditioned and brought up to be quiet, why? Because I said so, for me, what broke me or fixed me was turning 50, getting melanoma, being in a pandemic lockdown where, I could step outside of my house and get COVID and die. Yeah. From any of these things. And so if not now, then when? What if I only have 10 years or 5 years or 2 years or a year or 6 months or a month or a week or a day? What am I going to regret? It's important now that I come out to myself, that I know who I am, and that I stop hiding, and that I stop living for other people. Yeah. That's it. So here I am.
Here you are.
Happy to be here.
I'm happy you're here too. How does that, I can't even imagine, I remember when I told my father at 23, it was just such a weight off of my shoulders.
Yeah.
I'd only been carrying it for 23 years. How does it feel for you to just let that go?
That feeling like I was kicked in the chest is gone. The weight on my shoulders is gone. The tension in my neck is gone. Normally every winter I kind of shut down, and here it is almost the end of October, and I'm in a much better place than in prior years. And I'm cautiously optimistic that, I don't know that this one thing is going to fix all of the problems in my life, but it's a good start.
You wrote, "I now stand in solidarity with my worldwide rainbow family in support for those of us who repressed our knowing, kept the mask on for so long we suffocated, hid in plain sight for safety, and felt so painfully alone." Like, that journey is just to be full circle now. How does that feel to be able to say that?
I get emotional just hearing you say that. But yeah, feels good.
I'm so happy for you. You are beautiful and radiant in your identity and so valid and visible, and I'm just so glad for you. Thank you for being in this space with me today.
Thanks for having me. It's really nice to connect. I appreciate you taking the time to chat. On a personal level, thank you for the work you're doing. And by that, I mean, like, come on, one TikTok and thousands of Albertans came out of the woods.
That's crazy.
I love it.
I did not see that coming at all.
And I think TikTok has magical algorithms.
I don't understand it, but it's great.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, we'll just keep doing what we're doing and connecting. And it's just so great to know that we're not alone. I'm not alone.
I grew up about 6.5 hours northeast of Lethbridge, and I moved here for school. I grew up in Bonnyville, Alberta, actually. I'm not sure if you know where that is. It's quite different.
Tiny, yeah.
Very small, very isolated, and definitely, like, I didn't know anybody that was out. That kind of story of coming from such a small, isolated place and really deeply believing I was compulsively heteronormative and that I had no other option to this journey of now being out and open. Like, when I take a step back and look at that, my 15-year-old self would have never envisioned any of this today that I'm just so comfortable with for my identity.
You're making me realize that it's not just an era, like timing or an age thing. I mean, it is, I touched on it, but growing up without representation, without community, and certainly being more isolated in a smaller community can contribute to that. So yay.
I never expected that Lethbridge, Alberta would be this kind of like gay mecca for me, or this place to explore and figure out this aspect of my identity. I did want to give you some space too, because you mentioned there were a couple of great resources that were really helpful for you. Did you want to name the group that you're a part of so that others could connect?
Sure. So we're late bloomer lesbians, and we're a really inclusive group. So it's for women who love women, and that includes trans women, and that includes if you're bi or pan or on the A spectrum, non-binary. And the other resource that I would say, maybe for the older generation, because I think people in school probably see this, it's called the Gender Unicorn. And so it just breaks down the different kinds of attraction, and because a lot of people my age don't even know the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity and expression. I think it's a good starting place. And TikTok, lesbian TikTok is where it's at. Yeah, I guess that's it.
I think that's a good place to wrap up.
Yeah, sounds really good. Thanks so much.